Lisa Martinez sat at her station on the bridge of the New Horizon. The lights on her console blinked in their usual pattern. She had been watching the same screens for 3 months now. The deep space mission was going well, but it was also very quiet. Too quiet for someone who loved hearing new voices from across the galaxy. The ship was huge. It carried 5,000 people to find new homes among the stars. Captain Jake Morrison led them all with a steady hand. He was the kind of man who listened more than he talked. His crew trusted him because he never made promises he could not keep. Lisa checked her equipment one more time. The communication. Arrays were working perfectly. Earth was now so far away that messages took weeks to reach home. Out here in the black of space, they were truly alone. Or so they thought. A sound made Lisa look up from her work. It was not the usual hum of the ship or the quiet beeps from her machines. This was something else, something that should not exist. The signal came through on a frequency that no one used. It was clear and strong, like someone was sitting right next to her. But that was impossible. There were no other ships for light years in any direction. Lisa put on her headset and listened. The voice was female and spoke perfect English. Every word was clear and easy to understand. But what the voice said made Lisa feel cold inside. "Turn back. Your species is not ready. We have watched others like you." They all fell to the hunger. Lisa played the message again, then again. Each time it sounded more real and more frightening. She looked around the bridge, but no one else had heard it. The message was meant only for her. She saved the recording and ran it through every test she knew. The voice patterns were not human, but the English was too perfect to be a translation. Someone or something had learned their language very well. Lisa walked over to Captain Morrison. He was reading reports from the science teams. His coffee had gone cold again. Jake always forgot to drink his coffee when he was thinking hard about something. "Captain, we have a problem," she said quietly. Jake looked up at her. He could tell from her face that this was serious. Lisa had worked communications for 15 years. She did not get scared easily. What kind of problem, Lisa? The kind that speaks perfect English and knows things it should not know. Jake followed her back to the communications station. Lisa played the message 3 times. Jake listened without saying a word. His face did not change, but Lisa saw his hands tighten into fists. "Where did this come from?" Jake asked. "The Alpha 7 system. That dead zone we were planning to check next week." Jake called for an emergency meeting. Within minutes, the senior staff gathered in the conference room. Dr. Amy Carter came from the science labs. Commander Paul Rodriguez left his security rounds. The ship's other department heads filled the remaining seats. Jake played the message for everyone. The room became very quiet. Dr. Carter was the first to speak. "This is incredible," she said. "First contact with an alien species. We need to study this message. We need to learn everything we can about who sent it." Paul Rodriguez did not look happy. His job was to keep everyone safe. Unknown aliens sending warnings did not make him feel safe at all. "This could be a trap," he said. "Maybe they want us to come closer so they can attack us. We should change course and avoid that system completely." Lisa shook her head. "I do not think so. The voice sounds worried about us, not angry. Like someone trying to help." "Help or not," said Paul, "we have no idea what we are dealing with. Unknown aliens mean unknown dangers." Dr. Carter pulled up star charts on the big screen. The Alpha 7 system showed as mostly empty space. Their long-range sensors had detected the remains of old civilizations, but no active life signs. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the data. "Multiple dead worlds, ruins on at least 6 planets. Something terrible happened in that system. Maybe our mystery voice is trying to warn us about the same thing that killed those civilizations." Jake studied the information. The mission orders were clear. They needed to find habitable worlds for human colonization. Earth was running out of room and resources. These 5,000 people were just the first wave. Millions more would follow if they found good planets. We Have to investigate, Jake said finally. Earth is counting on us to check every possible system. We cannot turn back because of one message, even if that message is warning us about something that destroyed multiple civilizations, asked Paul. Especially, then said Jake, if something dangerous is out there, we need to know what it is. Other human ships will come this way eventually. We have to gather information that might save their lives. Lisa felt another chill run down her spine. Captain, I have been getting more messages. The same voice. She keeps calling herself Guardian. She sounds more worried each time. Jake looked at Lisa with concern. What else has she said? The messages are getting longer. She talks about something called the test. She says every species faces it when they reach the stars. She says most fail. Dr. Carter leaned forward with excitement. This Guardian might have knowledge about dozens of alien races. Think about what we could learn from her, or think about what she might do to us if we ignore her warnings, said Paul. Jake made his decision. We continue to Alpha 7. But we go in ready for anything. Paul, I want all defensive systems checked and ready. Amy, I want your science teams prepared to analyze anything we find. Lisa, I want you to keep talking to this Guardian. Try to learn more about what we are facing. The meeting ended, but Lisa stayed behind. Jake could see she was still worried about something. What is it, Lisa? Captain, the Guardian sounds so alone, like she has been waiting out there for a very long time, waiting and watching civilizations die. What if we are next? Jake put his hand on her shoulder. Then we better make sure we are not. Keep listening to her, Lisa. Sometimes the best way to face the unknown is to try to understand it first. Lisa nodded, but the cold feeling in her stomach did not go away. The New Horizon continued toward Alpha 7 and whatever was waiting for them. There. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and more distant. Ahead lay questions that might change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The Guardian kept sending her messages, each one more urgent than the last. The New Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Alpha 7 system. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the main screen as their destination came into view. What he saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. 6 dead. Worlds hung in space around a dying star. The planets looked like they had been burned from the inside out. Massive craters covered their surfaces. Strange metal structures stuck up from the ground like broken bones. Dr. Amy Carter worked at her science station with excited energy. Captain, look at these readings. Each planet shows signs of different technologies, different building styles, different ways of life. At least 6 separate civilizations lived in this system at different times. What happened to them? Asked Jake. Unknown energy signatures, she replied. Something hit each world with incredible power. But not from space. The destruction came from within each planet. Commander Paul Rodriguez checked his tactical displays. His face was grim. Captain, we have a problem. Our weapon systems just went offline. All of them. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. What do you mean offline? Dead, sir. Not damaged, just turned off, like someone flipped a switch. Before Jake could respond, the ship shuddered. They were not moving under their own power anymore. Something was pulling them deeper into the system. Lisa Martinez looked up from her communication station. Captain, I am getting a message from the Guardian. She says not to be afraid. She is bringing us to her where asked Jake. Lisa listened to her headset for a moment. To a place she calls the Sanctuary. She says it is the only safe place in this system. On the main screen, a new object came into view. It was massive beyond anything humans had ever built. The structure looked like it was made from crystal and light. It spun slowly in space between the dead worlds, like a lighthouse watching over graves. The New Horizon was drawn toward the crystal station. Jake ordered all hands to prepare for whatever was coming next. His crew worked at their stations, but their weapons stayed dark and useless. As they got closer to the station, Jake could see it was not just big. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. The crystal walls seemed to glow with their own inner light. Energy patterns flowed through, the structure like rivers of stars. Lisa suddenly stood up from her station. "Captain, she is coming aboard." "Who is coming aboard?" asked Jake. "The Guardian. She says she needs to speak with us face to face." Paul Rodriguez moved toward the bridge doors. His hand went to the weapon at his side, even though he knew it would not work either. "If she can turn off our systems, she can probably turn off our guns too." Before anyone could reply, the air in front of them began to shimmer. The shimmer grew brighter and took shape. A figure stepped out of the light like she was walking through a doorway that only she could see. She looked human, but Jake knew immediately that she was not. Her skin was pale like starlight. Her hair moved as if she was underwater. But it was her eyes that made everyone step back. They were silver and seemed to hold more sadness than any person should have to carry. The woman looked around the bridge at each of them. When her eyes met Jake's, he felt like she was reading his whole life. "Story in seconds. I am Zara," she said. Her voice was the same one Lisa had been hearing in the messages. "I am the guardian of this system. I tried to warn you, but you came anyway." Jake stepped forward. He was afraid, but he was also curious. "We had to come. We are looking for new homes for our people. We need to explore every system we can reach." Zara smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "You sound like all the others. The ones who built the cities on those dead worlds. They all needed something. They all thought they were different." "What happened to them?" asked Dr. Carter. "They failed the test," said Zara. "Every species that reaches the stars must face it. Most are destroyed by their own nature." Jake looked at the dead worlds on the screen. What kind of test destroys entire civilizations? The kind that shows who you really are when everything is at stake. Zara walked to the main window and looked out at the dead planets. "I have watched it happen so many times. Species after species reaching for the stars only to be consumed by their own darkness." "You have been here that long?" asked Amy. "I am the last of my people, the Keepers. We transcended physical form long ago to help guide younger races. But guidance only works if someone listens." Jake studied Zara's face. She looked tired in a way that went deeper than just needing sleep. "How long?" "Have you been alone?" 734 years. I have sent warnings to every ship that entered this system. None have ever listened until now." Something in her voice made Jake's heart hurt. He had never heard anyone sound so completely alone. Without thinking about it, he said, "I will be right back," and left the bridge. Paul Rodriguez stepped closer to Zara. His hand still rested on his weapon. "What is this test you keep talking about?" Zara turned those silver eyes on him. "It is not what you think, Commander. It is not given by us or by any outside force. Each species creates their own test by the choices they make when they reach this level of development." She waved her hand at the dead worlds. The Vorthak chose conquest over cooperation. They built weapons that consumed their own planets. The Zalani chose perfection over compassion. They created technology that removed all struggle from life until they forgot how to live. The Morian chose knowledge over wisdom. They learned everything but understood nothing. "What happens to species that pass?" asked Amy. "Very few do. Those that pass learn to work together in ways that make them stronger than the sum of their parts. They become something greater while remaining who they are." Jake returned carrying something in his hands. He walked over to Zara and held out a steaming cup. "I thought you might like some hot cocoa," he said. "You look like you have been cold for a very long time." Zara stared at the cup. Her silver eyes went wide with something that might have been shock. In 700 years, no species had ever offered her anything. They had begged for power or knowledge or mercy, but never simple kindness. She reached out with shaking hands and took the cup. The warmth seemed to flow through her like she had forgotten what it felt like. "Why did you do this?" she asked. "Because you have been alone, and that is not right. Nobody should have to carry that much sadness by themselves." For the first time in centuries, Zara felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Zara held the cup of hot cocoa in her hands like it was made of precious metal. She took a small sip and closed her silver eyes. Jake Morrison watched her face change from surprise to something that looked like wonder. "No one has shown me kindness in 700 years, she said quietly. "Every species that came here wanted something from me. Power weapons, knowledge, or mercy, but never this." Jake smiled. "It is just hot cocoa. Nothing special." Zara looked at him with those ancient eyes. "That is where you are wrong, Captain Morrison. This is the most special thing I have received since I became the Guardian." Dr. Amy Carter stepped forward with her scanner running. The reading showed energy patterns unlike anything in human science. "Zara, you said your people transcended physical form. What does that mean exactly?" "We gave up our bodies to become something greater. We thought it would let us help younger species avoid the mistakes that destroy civilizations. But we lost something important when we stopped being physical beings." "What did you lose?" asked Jake. "The ability to truly connect with others. When you no longer have a body, you forget what it feels like to be hungry or cold or lonely. You forget what it means to need simple kindness." Lisa Martinez had been listening to everything from her communication station. "Guardian, what is this test you keep warning us about? What exactly are we facing?" Zara finished the hot cocoa and set the empty cup down carefully. She looked around at each person on the bridge before she spoke. "The test is not something we created. It comes from within each species when they reach the stars. There is an ancient force that feeds on civilizations at their peak. Humans would probably call it the hunger." Commander Paul Rodriguez tensed up. "Some kind of alien predator?" "No, Commander. Much worse than that. The hunger is not alive in any way you would understand. It is what happens when a species' greatest fears and darkest impulses become real." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean it is made from us?" "Yes, Captain. Every civilization carries within itself the seeds of its own destruction. Fear, hatred, greed, jealousy, and the need to control others. When a species reaches interstellar travel, these dark impulses are amplified and given form." Amy studied her readings more carefully. The energy signatures from the dead worlds. That was this hunger. The hunger feeds on division and conflict. It grows stronger when people turn against each other, when they choose fear over trust, when they see others as enemies instead of potential friends. Zara walked to the main window and looked out at the dead planets. The Vorthak were fierce warriors, but they could not stop fighting each other long enough to face their real enemy. The hunger turned their strength into weakness by making them fight themselves. Lisa checked her communication equipment. "Guardian, I am getting reports from our other ships. Strange things are happening back on Earth." "What kind of strange things?" asked Jake with growing worry. "Riots in major cities. Nations mobilizing their space fleets. Political leaders making speeches about alien threats and the need to claim this. New technology for themselves?" Zara nodded sadly. "It has begun. The hunger wakes when a species faces the test. It reaches across space to touch the minds of those who are most afraid, most angry, most willing to see enemies everywhere." Paul Rodriguez was checking his security reports. "Captain, we have problems. On our own ship, too. Arguments breaking out in the crew quarters. People taking sides about whether we should trust the Guardian or prepare to fight her." Jake looked at his senior staff. He could see the worry in their faces, but also something else. The beginning of suspicion and fear. Even here on the bridge, he could feel it starting. "How do we fight something like this?" Jake asked. "You cannot fight it directly," said Zara. "The hunger grows stronger when you try to battle it with force. Every weapon you build, every wall you raise, every enemy you identify, just feeds it more power. Then how do species pass the test? Asked Amy. Very few ever have. Those that succeed find a way to choose connection over conflict. They choose to trust instead of fear. They choose to help instead of harm. Jake thought about the hot cocoa he had given Zara. Such a small thing, but it had meant everything to her. You said no one had shown you kindness in centuries. That means every species that came here chose the wrong path. Until now, said Zara quietly. Your simple act of offering me something warm to drink was the first sign of hope I have seen in 700 years. Lisa was getting more reports from Earth. Captain, the situation is getting worse. 3 nations have declared states of emergency. They are demanding that we return immediately with any alien technology we find. Paul Rodriguez looked grim. Sir, I recommend we go to full security alert. If our own people are turning against each other, we need to be ready for anything. Zara shook her head. Commander, that is exactly what the hunger wants you to do. The more you prepare for battle, the stronger it becomes. Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. He had 5,000 people depending on his decisions. Earth had millions more waiting for news of their mission. Guardian, what happened to your people? How did the Keepers face their own test? We chose transcendence, but we chose it wrong. We thought becoming beings of pure energy would make us wise and powerful. Instead, it made us isolated and alone. We gained the ability to help others, but lost the ability to truly understand them. Amy was taking notes on everything Zara said. So your people passed the test but paid a terrible price for it. We thought we passed, but now I wonder if we just found a different way to fail. What good is survival if you lose everything that made life worth living? Jake made a decision. He opened a communication channel to the entire ship. All hands, this is the captain. We are facing something unprecedented. An alien intelligence has warned us about a force that destroys civilizations from within. Right now, that same force is affecting people on Earth, and possibly on our own ship. He paused to let that sink in before continuing. I want everyone to remember why we are out here. We came to find new homes for humanity, to give our species a future among the stars. We can only succeed if we work together. Lisa smiled as she monitored communication channels throughout the ship. Captain, your speech is having an effect. People are talking instead of arguing. Some crew members are actually starting to organize discussion groups. Zara watched Jake with growing amazement. You are doing something no other captain has done. Instead of trying to control your people, you are asking them to choose cooperation. Jake shrugged. I learned a long time ago that you cannot force people to work together. You can only create the conditions that make them want to. The hot cocoa had been empty for a while, but Zara still held the cup. She looked at Jake with something that might have been pride. Captain Morrison, I think your species might actually have a chance. 3 days had passed since first contact with Zara. The situation on Earth was getting worse by the hour. Lisa Martinez worked around the clock monitoring communication channels as reports flooded in from across human space. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the communication center reading the latest updates. His face was grim as he processed the information. 23 nations had mobilized their space fleets. Trade agreements were being canceled. People were hoarding supplies and preparing for war. The worst part was the speeches being broadcast by world leaders. Every one of them claimed that other nations were planning to steal alien technology for themselves. Fear was spreading faster than any disease ever could. Amy Carter came running into the communications center with her tablet in hand. Jake, we have another problem. I have been analyzing the energy readings from the crystal station. Zara is weakening. What? Do you mean weakening? Jake asked. Her energy patterns are becoming unstable. I think maintaining that physical form is taking more power than she has. She might be dying. Jake felt his stomach drop. After 700 years of being alone, Zara had finally found hope again. Now she might not live to see if humans could pass the test. He found Zara in the observation lounge looking out at the dead worlds. She seemed more translucent than before, like she was fading away. The empty cocoa cup sat on the table next to her. "Guardian, you need to rest. Amy says you are using too much energy." Zara smiled weakly. "I am fine, Captain. I have been alone for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to have hope. The feeling is worth any price." Jake sat down across from her. "You are not fine. You are dying because you are trying to help us. Perhaps, but if humans can pass the test, my sacrifice will mean something. 700 years of watching civilizations destroy themselves will finally have a purpose." Before Jake could respond, Commander Paul Rodriguez entered the lounge. His face was tight with worry. "Captain, we have incoming ships. Multiple vessels, approaching from Earth." Jake stood up quickly. "What kind of ships?" "Mixed fleet, sir. Ships from at least 6 different nations. They are not talking to each other, and they are not responding to our communications." "This is exactly what the hunger wants," said Zara. "It has turned your own people against each other. They are coming here to fight over technology that will destroy them." Jake activated his communication system. "This is Captain Morrison of the New Horizon to all approaching vessels. You are entering a dangerous system. Please respond and coordinate your approach." The replies that came back made Jake's heart sink. Each fleet commander claimed to be on an official mission from their government. Each one demanded that the New Horizon turn over all alien contact information immediately. Several threatened to use force if their demands were not met. Paul Rodriguez was already running tactical scenarios. "Captain, they outgun us 20-1. If they decide to fight each other, while we are caught in the middle." Jake looked at Zara. She was even more faded than before. "Guardian, what can we do?" "Choose," said Zara simply. "Your species is at the moment of decision. You can let fear and greed tear you apart, or you can find a way to work together. But how do we convince them when they are already committed to conflict?" "You do not convince them, Captain. You show them a different way." Jake thought about this while watching the approaching fleets on his tactical display. Each group of ships was staying away from the others. Weapons were powered but not yet targeted. They were like wild animals circling each other, waiting for someone to make the first move. Lisa Martinez had an idea. "Captain, what if we broadcast your message about cooperation to all the fleets at the same time? Let them hear what we learned about working together." Paul Rodriguez shook his head. "Sir, these people came here ready for a fight. Words are not going to stop them." Jake looked at the empty cocoa cup on the table. Then he looked at Zara, who was becoming harder to see by the minute. Lisa opened a channel to all ships. Full broadcast. Jake stood up and began to speak. "This is Captain Jake Morrison. 3 days ago, we made first contact with an alien intelligence. What we learned changed everything we thought we knew about humanity's future in space." He paused to make sure everyone was listening. "There is an ancient force that destroys civilizations when they reach the stars. It feeds on fear-hatred and the need to fight each other instead of working together. Right now, that force is affecting all of us." On his tactical display, Jake could see the fleet slowing down. Some ships were powering down their weapons. "I want to tell you about a simple act that might save our species. When I met our alien contact, she had been alone for 700 years. She had watched civilization after civilization destroy itself, so I offered her a cup of hot cocoa." Jake could hear laughter on some of the communication channels. Others were calling him crazy. But he kept talking. That simple act of kindness gave her hope for the first time in centuries. It showed her that humans might be different from the species that came before us. Not because we are stronger or smarter, but because we choose to care about others. Amy Carter was monitoring the energy readings from all the ships. Jake, the weapon signatures are changing. Some fleets are powering down completely, but others were not. The commander of the largest fleet opened a direct channel to Jake. Captain Morrison, you are either a fool or a traitor. Alien contact means alien technology. That technology belongs to humanity, not to some guardian who wants to keep it from us. Jake felt his heart racing, but he kept his voice calm. Commander, the Guardian is not keeping anything from us. She is trying to teach us something that could save our entire species, save us from what Morrison, from becoming the dominant power in this galaxy, from becoming extinct like every other species that thought power was more important than wisdom. Zara suddenly stood up. Her form was barely visible now, but her voice still carried clearly. Captain Morrison, may I speak to them? Jake nodded and stepped aside. Zara moved closer to the communication system. People of Earth, I have watched your species for only a few days, but I have seen something that gives me hope. Your Captain Morrison showed me kindness when I was a stranger. He offered warmth when I was cold. He chose compassion over suspicion. Her voice became stronger as she continued. That simple choice showed me that humans might succeed where hundreds of other species have failed. But only if you choose the same path he did. One of the fleet commanders responded with anger. Alien, we did not come here for philosophy. We came for technology. Then you will leave with nothing said, Zara sadly. Because the only technology that matters is the ability to work together instead of fighting each other. Jake watched his tactical display as the fleets made their choices. Some ships were moving away from the others. Some were joining together in mixed groups, but too many were still preparing for battle. The test had begun and humanity was failing. The space around the Alpha 7 system filled with warships from Earth. Jake Morrison watched his tactical display as the fleets arranged themselves into battle formations. Fear and suspicion had won over cooperation and trust. Zara was barely visible now. Her form flickered like a candle flame in the wind. The effort of maintaining physical form while humanity faced its test was draining what little energy she had left. Captain, she whispered, her voice weak but urgent. The hunger is almost at full strength. When your fleets begin fighting each other, it will manifest completely. What does that mean? Asked Jake. It means the dark impulses of your species will take physical form. Fear will become monsters. Hatred will become weapons that turn friends into enemies. Greed will become a force that consumes everything it touches. Lisa Martinez was monitoring all communication channels. The situation was getting worse by the minute. Fleet commanders were making ultimatums. Weapons were being targeted. Some ships had already begun firing warning shots at each other. But then something unexpected began to happen. Captain said, Lisa with surprise in her voice, I am getting reports from Earth. People are organizing something called Cocoa for Strangers. Jake looked up from his displays. What? They are setting up stations in parks and town squares where people offer hot drinks to anyone who needs them. The movement started after your broadcast about offering cocoa to the Guardian. Amy Carter was monitoring news feeds from multiple countries. Jake, look at this. The movement is spreading faster than the fear. People are crossing cultural and political lines to share warm drinks and conversation. On the main screen, they could see something strange happening in space around them. Dark energy was beginning to swirl between the dead planets. The hunger was taking shape. It looked like a storm made of shadow and malice. But at the same time, other energy patterns were appearing. Bright streams of light were flowing between some of the human ships. Crews that had chosen to work together were creating connections that pushed back against the darkness. Zara suddenly became more solid. Color returned to her translucent form. Hope gave her strength that she had not felt in centuries. Captain Morrison, she said with wonder in her voice, your species is doing something I have never seen before. They are choosing unity while still remaining individuals. Jake could see what she meant. The human fleets were not becoming identical. Each ship kept its own identity, its own culture, its own way of doing things. But they were choosing to work together, despite their differences. Paul Rodriguez was tracking the energy patterns. Sir, the ships that are cooperating are creating some kind of defensive field. The dark energy cannot reach them, but not all the ships were cooperating. About a third of the fleet was still preparing for battle. The hunger focused on them, feeding on their fear and anger until it became strong enough to take action. Tentacles of dark energy reached out from the swirling storm. They wrapped around the ships whose crews had chosen conflict over cooperation. The crews inside began turning on each other as their worst impulses were amplified beyond control. Jake made a decision that would determine the fate of human civilization. He opened communication channels to every ship in the fleet. All vessels, this is Captain Morrison. We are witnessing the birth of something that has destroyed every other species that reached the stars. But we have a choice. He paused to let his words sink in. We can let our fears control us and become just another graveyard in this system, or we can choose to be something different, something better. Lisa was amazed by what she was seeing on her communication displays. Jake, your message is reaching Earth, too. The Cocoa for Strangers movement just became a global phenomenon. People are choosing connection over conflict. Amy Carter monitored the energy readings as more human ships joined the cooperative network. The field of light was growing stronger while the dark storm began to weaken, but the hunger was not finished. It launched a final attack, pouring all its malice toward Earth itself. If it could not destroy humanity through their fleets, it would target their home world directly. That was when something miraculous happened. Millions of people on Earth were sharing warm drinks and kind words with strangers. Families from different cultures were inviting each other for dinner. Former enemies were working together on community projects. The simple act of offering cocoa to a stranger had grown into a wave of compassion that spanned the globe. The hunger struck this wall of human connection and broke apart like waves against a cliff. It could not feed on cooperation. It could not consume kindness. It could not destroy people who chose to care about each other. Zara stood up straighter than she had in 700 years. Her form was solid and bright with hope. Captain Morrison, she said with joy in her voice, humanity has passed the test. Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he had not realized he was carrying. What happens now? Now your species joins something greater while remaining who you are. You become bridges between worlds instead of conquerors. You become teachers of cooperation instead of students of conflict. The crystal station began to change. New structures grew from its surface, reaching toward the human fleet. Landing, bays and meeting halls, communication arrays that could reach across the galaxy. Zara walked over to the empty cocoa cup and picked it up. This simple container represents the greatest technology in the universe, the ability to offer comfort to a stranger, to choose kindness over suspicion, to see others as friends instead of enemies. Lisa was getting reports from across human space. The crisis was over. Nations were working together to plan joint missions. The fear and hatred that had threatened to tear humanity apart was being replaced by curiosity and hope. Jake looked out at the dead worlds that surrounded them. Will other species get the same chance we did? That depends on you, Captain. Your people can become the new keepers. You can guide other civilizations through the test, but you will do it better than my people did because you will never forget what it means to be kind to strangers. Amy Carter was already making plans. We could establish research stations throughout the galaxy, places where new species can learn about cooperation before they face their own test. Paul Rodriguez nodded in agreement, and we will be ready to protect them from the hunger if they choose the wrong path. Jake smiled as he looked around at his crew. They had come to the stars looking for new homes for humanity. Instead, They had found a new purpose for their entire species. Zara held out the empty cocoa cup to Jake. "Will you teach other species about this?" Jake took the cup and looked at it thoughtfully. "We will teach them that the smallest acts of kindness can save entire civilizations. We will teach them that offering something warm to a stranger is more powerful than any weapon." He paused and smiled. "And yes, we will teach them to make really good hot cocoa." 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the New Horizon. The ship was now the flagship of humanity's first interstellar diplomatic mission. They had received a signal from a young species taking its first steps into space. Zara joined him at the window. She was preparing 2 cups of hot cocoa. "What do you think their favorite drink might be?" she asked. Jake smiled as he watched the approaching alien ship. "I guess we are about to find out." The age of human expansion through conquest was over. The age of human expansion through compassion had begun.